I wanted to record a video for people who may experience either now, are currently experiencing, or in the future will be experiencing a situation where they are in some way taking care of someone who has dementia. In 2019, my mother, she drank too much water and ended up depleting her sodium, and I had to take her to urgent care, and then she spent the night at the hospital. And I didn't really understand why she did that, but she was under the impression that her primary care doctor had told her to drink more water. I never had an experience with someone going through dementia. I had some elderly relatives that may have experienced senility, but never full-blown dementia where the person actually died from dementia. My mother was the first example of that. And so I didn't have an understanding of what to look for. But in 2020, COVID hit, and I ended up being home with my mother, who one day I was fixing her lunch, and she said that I had reminded her of her mother. And something clicked where I knew that if someone had fixed me something to eat, I wouldn't think they were, say, cousin Jim or Uncle Bob. Those are fictitious names, but I would know who fixed me lunch. It wouldn't be even a slight error in judgment as to who prepared the lunch for me. But for her, it happened, and then she knew it was me. So it was a brief moment, but yet I felt like I needed to tell her doctor. And so the next time she had a doctor's appointment, I would always take her to the doctor. I told the doctor about this experience, and he wanted to run cognitive tests, but she didn't want to do that. She was a Christian. I'm a Christian. And we may have not seen eye to eye on this particular situation because she believed if she had enough faith, she wouldn't have dementia. And I realized that God has the final say, and I really believe those cognitive tests might have slowed down the dementia, but ultimately dementia is a death sentence. So it was going to happen either way, and she did not want to take the cognitive tests. And the other reason why she didn't want to take them is he had mentioned a CAT scan, and I think she was thinking like she would be in some type of MRI machine, and she really was someone who disliked being in enclosed spaces. She was very claustrophobic. She didn't really like elevators. If she could have the opportunity, she'd rather go up the steps. So that was the type of person she was. So she refused any kind of cognitive tests. And the doctor kind of saw it as, well, this is a one-time event, and it hasn't happened in the past that we know of. So when she comes in every 6 months, we'll just kind of gauge where we're at, but it should be okay. It may have just been a momentary lapse. And I too didn't know, about dementia, but it did kind of give me a clue that there was something going on that I needed to kind of watch. And so it took another year, and about a year later, she started hallucinating. And she had fallen back in 2019. And so I was basically sleeping in the same room as her by this point, by 2021. And so we were in the master bedroom. She was in the big bed, and I was in a folding bed, the kind where you can take them from room to room. It's kind of a temporary bed type of thing. But I was in there to help her. So, if she needed my help, if she had fallen or something, I would at least hear her and be able to respond. One night I woke up and she was sitting on her rollator, which is like a walker with wheels. And she said, "Why did you let all these people in?" And I'm half asleep. So I look around and I don't see anybody, and it's dark. And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she said, "You know what I'm talking about. Why did you let all these people in here?" And basically she thought I was throwing a party in the middle of the night. She saw all these people who didn't exist that I couldn't see. And it was obvious then that I kind of figured out that we're talking about dementia. And I think I had Googled it too, like when older people have hallucinations, what could that be, type of a thing. And so I gathered what was going on, and I found out she had Alzheimer's. Initially, I thought she had something called Lewy body dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most prevalent form of dementia. And I believe she had it because, as my understanding is of Alzheimer's, the hallucinations happen about halfway through your dementia life cycle. And so she started getting hallucinations in 2021, and she passed away in 2025. And now looking back, like with that experience where she went to the hospital, I can kind of see that there was a before that was several years, and now there was an after several years. And in Lewy body dementia, that typically is hallucinations at the beginning of the dementia. And then there's other kinds of dementia actually too, where you don't hallucinate. Alzheimer's is typically 8 years. It can be longer. It can be shorter. A lot of it is based on age and health. My mom was in her 80s, and 8 years, I would say, was about what she had, and that's very typical. She was a little less than 8 years, I would say. But I think one of the scariest things for me with dementia was not knowing what was coming next. I always felt like I was on the ball with what was going on now, but then what would come next. And obviously, you go through stages. Sometimes, like with my mother, they lose the mobility. They can't walk anymore. So you have to think ahead. So initially, she could use the restroom herself. Then I started going in with her. Then I bought those metal frames that kind of go around the toilet where you can hold on to the handlebars and lower yourself onto the toilet. Then I would have to help her on the toilet even more than that. And then finally I bought a commode where, she would get up from her chair, sit on the commode. I helped her get up. And then that was the process. She didn't have to walk. And then finally she was in a hospital bed where she had incontinence briefs that I would have to replace, clean her up, all of that. And so what I would say is I may make a second video where I talk about the later stages of dementia, but early on, it's really important not to panic, first of all. But secondly, it's really important to find places on YouTube where there are videos made by hospice nurses that actually show you how to do certain things. Like one of the concerns before she was placed in a hospital bed at home was, how am I going to change the underwear? Because you're laying on it, right? They go through all of that. Or how do you roll somebody over? What's the right way to pick somebody up out of a chair? And I found one video of a hospice lady who says, put your arm around their back, take the other arm, loop it under their arm right here. Let's say they're sitting right in front of me, and then pull them up that way. And I found that to be very easy compared to trying to pull them up by the arms. Or there are companies that sell things like rubber donuts where they grab a hold of one end, you grab a hold of another, and you try to pull them up. If they let go, then they fall. So I didn't like that idea. And there's a lot of products that you need to look into as far as knowing what to buy at the stage that they need that product. And even though there wasn't some great miracle that happened to my mother as far as her health was restored, I did find it to be a miracle that it would happen that I would buy things that I could see ahead and say, well, I need to buy that because eventually she's going to need that. And as soon as I would buy it, she would need it. So I found that to be miraculous. I know one thing. I know you can get through this. I know you can do this because I know you care enough about this person in your life that you're taking care of them. So as long as you do your best, don't beat yourself up. Things will happen. It's not an easy job, but you can do it. And so, especially if you're in the early stages right now, what I would recommend is going on Reddit, going on YouTube, finding all the videos that talk about how to take care of people with dementia, because you need the knowledge. The knowledge is the most important part. It's not and another thing is, the best advice I got from people who were dealing with spouses or parents who had dementia was, especially one guy that I remember. He was an older man who still was working, and he had lost his wife a few years before to dementia. And he told me that, he said, it's really important that when someone offers you to help, that you take them up on it. And I needed that because, like I said, COVID was kind of a blessing for me because I was at home and got to help my mom quite a bit. But as COVID started to subside, companies started to ask people to return to the office. And so more and more I was needing to go into work. And my brother, who his job was fully remote, he could come over and watch my mom while I had to go to work. And then later I'd come back and he'd go back home. So you do want, if you can get people who are willing to help you, take that. Don't feel bad about it. Another thing is talking about looking ahead. My mom lost her mobility, so she couldn't go to her primary care doctor anymore. And there are, at least that I know of, still some doctors today who will make house calls. You should look into that. In the Bay Area, I used to live in Northern California, and in the Bay Area, there was a company or a physicians group called Bay Area House Call Physicians. The doctor was Doug Jones. And if you live in the Bay Area, you might want to look into that because he also served, I believe, on the board of a hospice care. And I used that hospice through him. And when he came to check on my mother, he realized my mother was losing weight at that point. She was in the hospital bed. She wasn't eating, but I was still giving her things like pudding and stuff to try to keep her weight up as much as I could, but she was still losing weight. And so he said she needs to be in hospice. So he actually took care of all that. They showed up the next day, and she lived about a week after that. So I just want to encourage you that you can make it, especially if it's the early stages, you have some time. Go about life normal, create moments with that person. And I've been blessed because I've been able to talk about this without getting emotional. When I'm alone, that's a different story. Sometimes I miss her. It's been about a year now. But I don't regret it. I don't regret any moment that I was able to give back to her for all she did for me as my mother. So I hope that helps. And again, I will try to make a video soon of the later stages of dementia and what you can expect. But in the meantime, take care. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.